I think it's safe to say the honeymoon is over, but is this what we can expect from the Habs all season long? I hope not. We'll talk about this and more on Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hockey Inside Out. I am your host, Jessica Rusnak, and boy, a lot has changed since the last time the four of us spoke. So let's bring in the panel. We've got Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. We have former NHLer, Stanley Cup champ, and former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens, Rick Green. And we also have Andrew Berkshire, the program director at Game Over at SDPN Sports. So last time we were talking, everything was going well for the Montreal Canadiens. And since then, they've lost 4 games in a row. And what has happened with this team? What can be the explanation behind it? Is it just reality set in? Should Habs games start at 7:30? Maybe that would help them have a good first period to this game. So what do you think is the solution to all the problems we've been seeing with the Canadiens? Rick, let's get your thoughts.
Well, I mean, everybody talks about coming back home after a road trip. Kind of tough. We always used to hash and rehash that. It's kind of a poor excuse, but it's not always easy. But anyways, if you look back, the Vegas game, they played a hell of a game against Vegas, and ultimately lost to the shootout. And even Arizona, they were in it. But then you go into St. Louis, and even the game against the Lightning, and you give up 11 goals against, 17 in their last 4. They haven't come to realize that if they do not get outstanding goaltending, if they do not get the type of defensive play that they need to give them a chance, to be in every game, they're not going to win. And I think we've seen it clear cut in the last couple of games that they have been really, really sloppy and really on the back of their heels. And the defense, for whatever reason, I always seem to beat on them a little bit, but they're the key to the success of the hockey club, along with the goaltending. And when they struggle and they do some things not on the defensive side of play, they create opportunities for the opposition. And I don't know how many times I could see them running around doing some foolish things on the offensive side of the play instead of playing defense first. And I'm sure that's going to be addressed, but it's disappointing when they tease us a little bit to see the type of game plan and the execution that they had the previous games where, they lost by 1 goal, and then they come out and they're just all around bad. And they're going to have to fix that really quickly, or they're going to be behind like they did against Tampa.
Well, St. Louis spoke a bit after the game about first game back from a long road trip and saying he remembers as a player, especially for the older guys who have kids, you come back and your wife goes, "Here, you deal with them now. I've been dealing with them for the last 10 days or whatever it is." But this team doesn't have a lot of guys with kids or younger teams, so that shouldn't really be an excuse. I think it's there are teases at times, and you sort of forget that this is still a rebuild. You can also forget they're missing Kirby Dach and David Savard. That's 2 key members of this team. As Marty St. Louis said after the game, they're a little bit fragile now, and they've lost some confidence, and that really shows on the ice. The goaltending covered up a lot of the problems earlier in the season. Jake Allen had a rough game against Tampa. Montembeault wasn't great the game before, so if they don't get great goaltending, it's going to be hard for this team to win. But it's just a case. It's a young team. As Marty St. Louis, that they've lost a bit of confidence. They had a little bit of swagger to them. They were going for a little while. They've lost that now. The thing is, they still don't give up. 4-0, and it looked like they're probably going to be shut out. They come back, they make it 4-2, make a game of it. Then they take some dumb penalties. Jacky took a dumb penalty. Jake Evans took a dumb penalty. Those are mistakes that shouldn't happen. Those are something Marty St. Louis is going to have to deal with, because undisciplined penalties have been a problem right from the start of the season. And Marty sort of lets the guys play free and do their thing. But I think he's going to have to start cracking down on either taking away ice time from guys or benching guys or sitting guys in the press box who are continuing to do stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a difference between losing and losing in a way that is not playing your game, right? I think after the St. Louis game, everyone was kind of hoping they'd have a bit of a bounce back, start the game well. I believe a couple Canadiens players actually said they wanted to start the game on fire, and lo and behold, 20 seconds in, they give up the blue line with ease, and Kucherov snipes one immediately. I think defensively this season, before these last two games, the team has improved significantly. But one area of concern for me consistently is they give up the blue line way too easy. You look at how hard Tampa Bay fights at both the offensive and defensive blue lines, and Tampa Bay is not the team that they were the previous several years. They're just not that good anymore. They have great players at the top, but their depth has kind of been annihilated by trying to keep the core together after those back-to-back Stanley Cups. You know, to have a team that fights at every blue line to make sure that it's tough to get in and tough to exit, that's what the Canadiens need to focus on right now at even strength. To defensive play at both blue lines, essentially, I think it is really lacking right now. Attention to detail is really lacking right now. Rick said they were sloppy. I couldn't agree more. I think whenever you're like, you could look at the last two games and say the bounces were going against them, but if every single bounce is going against you, it means you're not putting yourself in a position to succeed. And that comes down to effort level, putting yourself in the right places, skating hard. There were a lot of guys who were not skating hard in that first period against Tampa, and that whole game really until the third period, late in the third period against St. Louis, and that's got to change very quickly.
But what do you think about the slow starts with the Canadiens, especially the game against Tampa Bay? They were in Toronto the night before. We saw the same thing the week before when they faced Arizona. They were in Anaheim. They had to travel, and somehow it looked like roles were reversed here, that the Canadiens were the team that played the night before. Are they just kind of not focused enough on their days off, that when they come into the games, they're losing that fire that they need to have, that some of the other teams coming off a back-to-back, maybe out of desperation, just know that they have to come out strong because there's been some travel. They might be a little bit tired from the night before. But what do you think is behind them not being able to come out with the start that they need?
Well, it's 6 games in a row now they've given up the first goal. And it's maybe just a lack of intensity, as you said. Maybe they should start the games at 7:30, Jess. But, after the morning skate, Arbor Jacki was saying, Tampa, you're right, Andrew, they're not the team they were, but they still play really well together as a unit when they're on the ice. And Marty St. Louis said that's something that they want to develop with the Canadiens. And after the morning skate, Jacki was saying their number one line and their number one defense player, when they're on the ice, you got to really be aware and you can't make mistakes because they'll capitalize. First shift. As you say, they give up the blue line easy. Kucherov, a great shot, is 1-0 25 seconds or 24 seconds into the game. It's hard to bounce back from that. So there's no excuse for a team not being ready to play when the puck drops. And I think that lands on Marty St. Louis done a fantastic job in this rebuild and letting guys play, but I think he's got to start clamping down a little harder on these guys. And there's no excuse, like 6 games in a row, to give up the first goal. That's Marty likes to say, he wants to see if something's a one-off or if it's a pattern. This has become a pattern, so this is something that they got to fix.
And I think when they were having some success, and you talk about the neutral zone gap, or the defenseman playing up to close the space on the opposition, that can only work if you can have your forwards being disciplined in the way that they're fairly high, so that they can be the first man back, so you don't give a lot of space for the opposition to come up with speed. So they've kind of gotten away from that. When they have had success, they've had their third forward high. The defense are right up into the opposition's faces by the red line, and the end result is making it difficult for them to enter the zone. But right now they're in a little bit of a funk in that area. That's not they're not clicking, and it's allowing way too much for the opposition to be creative, to come through the neutral zone with speed, and obviously create real good scoring chances as a result of that.
Never trust the forward, Rick.
Well, what can I say? You'd like to, but chances are they're on the offensive side.
And I think we all knew eventually the loss of Kirby Dach was going to come home to roost, right? Like, this team has more depth up the middle than they have in recent years, but losing Dach is such a huge factor. And losing Savard, I think, hurts on the penalty kill a little bit, but overall, if you look at how Matheson and Savard were playing earlier in the season, things were not really working out either. Matheson's got his own issues right now. He looks rougher without Savard, but I don't think it's really down to his pairing. I think that's his execution level is not very high. His mental mistakes right now are all over the place. It seems like he's trying to push play far too hard and thinking only of one side of the ice a lot of the time and getting himself caught. So I'd say, like, if you want some positives, I would say that the top line still looks pretty good. Juraj Slafkovsky, he didn't have the best game against Lightning, but he was significantly better than the last week where he was terrible. And then Caden Goalie and Justin Barron, that pairing has been nothing short of excellent, in my opinion. I think that core five right now without Doc essentially has been the five that have been the best over the last several games. And, that average age of about 22 between those five players, that's nothing to sneeze at.
I think where the losses have already really hurts Matheson is just he's playing too many minutes. He's just playing too many minutes and his game's breaking down as a result of it. And he's trying to do too much. I mean, you're right. He's showing that maybe getting frustrated with the lack of offense, especially down 4-0. I mean, that's the second game in a row he's finished -3. But it looks like he's playing too many minutes and he's trying to do too much. And I think he needs to settle down a little bit and stop trying to create so much offensively. The previous game against St. Louis, the first goal was him pinching in. Then he had dropped his stick trying to make a poke check on the second goal at the blue line, which led to it. So it's, there's been some talk about maybe he's playing hurt, but, he took part in the optional morning skate before the Lightning game. So if a guy's playing hurt, you wouldn't think he'd be out there. I think it's just a case of too many minutes and trying to do too much. You just got to settle down a little bit and focus more on the defensive part of the game and let the offense come naturally as opposed to trying to push it.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the defense to understand what they do best and try and do that each and every shift. And, once you get into a situation where guys are struggling, you talk about Matheson, you talk about Jack-Eye, even Jordan Harrison for that matter. I'm not totally in love with, him also. And they have to realize what they do best, keep it simple, play within your capabilities, and take care of your zone first, and then the rest will take care of itself. And right now they're just not sure whether to go forward or to back up, and they'll have to find a way to realize that they got to straighten that part out.
And now the Canadiens are going to be entering a busy schedule. They've got Detroit, they've got Boston, they've got Vancouver. Do you think that this might actually help them in a way because there's not that much time between games that you really just have to move on from the next one and focus at the task at hand? Do you think maybe this might be able to help them get out of their slump?
That's some tough teams they're playing, so they better be ready to play at the puck drop. You can't fall behind 1-2-0 against these teams, or you're not going to come back. It's a tough stretch. It's going to be difficult for them. And as Marty St. Louis said, they're fragile a bit now. They've lost confidence. And these teams are playing, with Boston and Vancouver. They're not exactly confidence-building teams to play against. You got to have some confidence coming into that game. So I think the Detroit game will be huge. I think if they can win that game and get back on track and gain some confidence and be a little less fragile, but if they lose against Detroit, I think it could be an ugly weekend back-to-back here. A rare back-to-back Saturday-Sunday games at the Bell Center. Yeah,
they're not going to – I think Vancouver especially, if you allow the first goal – it's not going to go pretty. That team is just red hot right now, and it's not just the shooting. Thatcher Demko, I believe, over the last couple of weeks has something like a 98% save percentage. So good luck.
Yeah.
that you want to get guys like Josh Anderson crashing the net on that one because you're going to have to find a way to score, and it's going to be difficult. These teams, Detroit, not the greatest team, obviously, but the Bruins and the Canucks are both red hot, so it's going to be a big test.
And the Bruins lose Bergeron. Everybody figures that they're done, and then they just keep going. The Bruins are an incredible team, just the way they just keep winning. They change coaches, they keep winning. They lose key players, they keep winning. They've developed a culture that's similar to what I think Marty St. Louis wants to have here, that guys go up, they lose guys, next guy up. It's going to be a tough weekend.
And they, look at Boston. They don't give much. I mean, all those teams, there's not much against. They don't give you much space, and they pretty well suffocate you when it comes to playing in their zone. And it's it's huge. And everybody deals with scheduling issues. Is this going to be beneficial? Montreal jumping right back into it. Hey, time will tell. But listen, they got to be ready to go off the bat and, try and build some confidence because obviously it's rattled right now and they're not sure, exactly, how to put their finger on it. But one thing remains the same is they've got to be ready from the drop of the puck. And you've got to hope that the goaltender is going to do what they did before, and that's make huge timely saves to allow them to get through a little bit of the soft play on occasion that they've been doing lately.
Well, watching the Bruins for Habs fans, something that can give Habs fans hope is that the Bruins, one of the reasons they keep winning is their defense is so good. And you're like this, Rick, usually the team with the best defense wins. If you have four guys on defense that can dominate and can control play, gives your team a good chance of winning. The Canadiens have so many good young defensemen now and prospects coming up and already with the team. As Andrew mentioned, these guys are all 22, 23 years old. That should give Canadiens fans some hope for the future, that this defense, as they grow together, can be something like what Boston is on defense, and they can help a team win games.
Yeah. They do look like they need a practice, though. Rick, would you bag skate them, or would you try to have a fun practice at this point?
That the old bag skating was, I think, is long gone. The guys look at that as like, a big deal. Do whatever you want. We're gonna figure it out. But listen, if you look, 3.6 goals against is not going to cut it when it comes down to having any type of successful run, and I'm sure they're quite aware of that. So. How do they go about, fixing that area? Back to the X's and O's, and hoping that the guys are going to buy in to the type of details that they executed before that give them success. So it's a long season. You're going to have your ups and downs. Scheduling, guys are going to be fatigued, but everybody goes through it. But now this is a test of the character of the guys and finding a way for them to respond and make the difference, because they don't want to keep losing. Nobody wants to see that happen, and they're going to dig in and do whatever they can do to get this thing straightened out.
Well, the Senators.
Maybe I'm just being a little bit naive here, but I think Detroit's a team that they can beat, and if they get that win there, then going into Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada game against the Boston Bruins. If you can't get up for that game, then there's bigger issues there. And something that Martin St. Louis was saying, that he feels like they're playing too much as individuals. They have to get back to putting the team first mentality. And I think if they're able to do that and get that sorted, they can have a better performance, hopefully a better start. And that will just allow them to feel comfortable, take it one period at a time. They have a good start against Detroit. It's like, okay, we can do this. So, I am optimistic for the rest of the schedule that maybe they can sort some things out. But I do want to say, I think the first start of the game from the game against Tampa Bay should have been the fans. If you are waiting for your hot dog and beer and it was longer than 14 minutes and you get to your seat and it's 4-0, wow. And if you stay, because you probably spent a lot of money on these tickets, at least they did put a show on in that third period. But I can't imagine. That's what I was thinking about. The fans that are there 14 minutes in, down 4-0.
Yeah, especially you pay $300 a ticket and you're sitting there, it's 4-0 early in the first period. But the fans, near the end of the game, they were starting to go Habs, go chant again. As I mentioned earlier, this team, they don't give up. It's like it really isn't over till it's over with this Canadiens team. And just going back a bit to the bag skate thing, the Senators had a bag skate on Tuesday, and I know one of the guys who covers the Senators on Twitter said maybe they should be working on their defensive zone coverage instead of doing that. And I think a bag skate is a desperation move now for a coach, especially in today's NHL. Like if you get to the point where it's a bag skate, you got bigger problems, I think, than that. I think you got big problems, and Ottawa has big problems. So I think with Marty St. Louis, it's a case of just tightening up on as I said, it needs to crack down on guys taking dumb penalties is one thing I think he really needs to focus on.
All right, moving on to rapid fire. The Montreal Canadiens goaltending situation still seems to be up in the air. They're not getting consistent goaltending from Jake Allen or Samuel Montembeault, and Caden Primo, he's still there as well. What do you think of the goaltending situation? What do the Canadiens need to do, and how much longer can they continue to be carrying three goaltenders on their roster? Andrew, let's get you to start this one off.
It's never a good situation, the three goaltenders. I think Montembeault, the way he played against the Lightning, honestly, I thought he was fantastic. The Canadiens put on pressure in the last 40 minutes of that game, and the chances that they did allow seemed to all be of very, very high quality, and it wasn't until a goal from Nick Paul in the final minutes there, which I don't think should have counted because he definitely closed his hand on the puck, pulled it into his body, and then threw it down. Usually those don't count. He was perfect. I would give him the start against Detroit, a game where they really need a win. And then on the weekend, I would split it between Jake Allen and Caden Primo. It's not like they're chasing the playoffs right now. They've got to get those guys in. They gave Caden Primo a really rough start against New Jersey. He played pretty well, but they allowed a lot of goals, obviously. Another 2 tough games on the weekend. If they want to build up his trade value, let a team see him play against these tough teams and see how he does. But they've got to make a decision on that pretty quickly. They can't go, I don't think, till the end of November carrying 3 goalies. Just looking at the defense, like the amount of minutes that Matheson is forced to play because they can't carry an extra defenseman to spell in once in a while to change things up, that's tough. They've got to figure out something.
In all fairness to Caden Primo, too, I mean, I don't know too many goalies that can be sitting in the stands or practicing only and bring their A game when they get thrown into the fire. And, here's a kid that, with time, he's losing out on, chances to play and show his stuff. And they have to address that sooner than later, because it can't drag on like this. I don't foresee them being part of his of the future. So get him playing, allow the kid to show his stuff, and then move him along and let him have an opportunity to play and not carry the three goalies, because it's just it doesn't work.
No, 3 goalies is not, as you said, Andrew, it's not good for anyone. The Edmonton Oilers are desperate for goaltending, like really desperate. But what Jake Allen's performance the first period against Tampa, if they were thinking of him, might have changed their mind a bit. But they don't think with Kent Hughes, it's all about asset management, and they're worried that they're going to lose Primo on waivers if they send him back to Laval and get nothing for him. But I really wonder if anybody's going to take him. I mean, he's got a one-way contract. He's making $800,000 this year. He's making $1.1 million, I think, next season, whether he plays in the AHL or the NHL. So, guy's got a 3-13-2 record in the NHL with a 4.11 goals against average and an .872 save percentage with a one-way contract. To me, you roll the dice, you put him on waivers. If he clears waivers, great, he goes down to Laval to help them out. If somebody else takes him, move on. To me, it just it's not fair to Primo. It's not fair to Allen and Montembeault, because it cuts into their practice time and into their reps. It's not as bad when they're in Brossard, because they have 2 rinks. So the goalie coach can take one of the goalies in the other rink. But they practiced at the Bell Center on Monday this week because it was team photo day. There's only 2 nets and you got 3 goalies. And the morning skates are all there. So it's not a good situation. To me, you put Primo on waivers. If you lose him, you lose him. And if you don't lose him, he goes down to Laval and he helps them out.
Well, that's
Laval
what I
could
kind of
use
figure.
a goalie.
It's like, at one point, does carrying 3 goaltenders hurt you more, than losing him on waivers? Mm-hmm. I don't think many of us thought at this point into the season that they would still have 3 goaltenders. It was supposed to be, a temporary position, maybe 3 weeks, a month, it would have been settled. But now it looks like we might even begin the new year still with the 3 goaltenders. That I find it interesting that Kent Hughes has not made a decision yet. And I think it's time to do it. Or if not, it's going to have a trickle down effect and hurt his team more.
Well, I'm sorry, Jess. I was just going to say he's caught in a tough situation, because if one of those Montembeault or Allen goes down with injury, now where do they go? Not to say that Primo is the one that's going to make the difference, but they're left kind of holding the bag there, is going, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, and Allen and Montembeault have injury histories too, so it's
and Allen, for that matter, if they continue to play like they did the start of the game the other day, he's going to be puck shy like Bernie Wolf did with the Capitals.
Another player that had a good game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but just can't get that monkey off his back. I think he is giving him a big, big bear hug on his back. That is Josh Anderson. He really wants to score his first goal of the season, and you really feel for him, because you could tell he's had opportunities, but just luck's not on his side. Rick, what's it going to take to get that monkey off his back?
Well, again, we talk about, Josh, he comes to play every night. He's, he does his best. He's trying to make things happen. And, it's obviously not happening for him right now. And he's a north-south type player. He's probably going to have to get into the real ugly area of getting in front of the net. And maybe one of the pucks will go off the off his leg or something like that, because he's not getting he's not able to finish with the good shot that he does have, and even the opportunities that he is getting, it's not allowing him to finish. So I hope that the kid finds a way to get that first goal, and maybe he's kind of a streaky scorer. He can put together a few, but he's feeling it. He knows it, and you can't fault him for effort and trying to make the difference each game. But he just he can't find a way to get it done, obviously.
Yeah, he had a really rough game against St. Louis. It was probably his worst game of the year, and I was shocked because those kinds of games where your team is really playing sloppy, I think that's when you need a guy like Josh Anderson who just puts his head down and barrels through guys to try to get the puck closer to the net. He was that guy against Tampa. He's still making a lot of sloppy plays. You can tell the execution's not there. Like, we talk a lot about guys on cold streaks where you're gripping your stick too tight. Josh Anderson's got a pair of vice grips on there. Like, that guy, his stick, there's no finesse right now. It's like the puck touches it and it bounces halfway down the ice. Eventually things are going to go well for him if he keeps playing like he did against Tampa Bay. But right now, it's a rough scene. I think the number one thing with Josh Anderson, though, that I would be focused on right now is they got to get him off the power play. He is an absolute play killer out there. He does not know what to do. The best that he can do is kind of recover a puck in the middle and send it back out to the perimeter, and it's just not functional. That power play is scoring right now despite him. They've got to get somebody else out there. He's an even strength guy. That's where he does his scoring. So let him focus on that. Don't put extra pressure on him.
I'll disagree with you on the power play, Andrew, because I think that's why one of the reasons he's out there is to win pucks back, and he does that quite effectively. But I'll go on the record and say Josh Anderson is going to finish the season with 20 goals because, in the 3 seasons he's been with Montreal, he had 17 goals in 52 games his first year. He had 19 goals in 69 games his second year. And then last year he had 21 goals in 69 games before that high ankle sprain. He's a guy, he's had so many. I mean, he could easily have 5 or 6 goals right now this season. And the thing in the game against Tampa, you can tell he's squeezing the stick and he's got the big monkey on his back, as you said, Jess, but he worked his butt off. Like, he was finishing checks. He was noticeable. I thought he was their best forward on the ice. You noticed him every time he was on there. And as I said, he had a few chances. I think once he gets one, he's going to get 2, 3, 4 pretty quick after that. So he's a guy, as I said, he's got, 40 goals over the last 2 seasons, despite missing 13 games each of those seasons with injuries. So it's 12 games now without a goal. But I think it's just, if he wasn't getting chances, and it's a bit of a cliche, if you're not getting chances, then you worry. But he's getting lots of chances, and I think he's just feeling the weight of it and maybe thinking too much when he does get a chance. But again, I'll say I still think he'll finish the season with 20 goals once he gets one and gets on a bit of a roll.
And speaking about a player getting their first goal of the year, Slafkovsky, he got his goal after getting promoted to play on the line with Suzuki and Caulfield. Do you think that first goal of the season will be able to give him a boost that he needs going forward?
I think with Slafkovsky, you just got to manage expectations. Yeah. I don't think anybody should expect him to be out here scoring like 20 goals this year. I think as long as he's making good plays and you see the progress in his game, that's where the focus should be. We're seeing that right now. As opposed to last week where he was making no good plays, now he's making 2 good plays, but he can't make the third one to make the play the best play. And that's still progress, as much as it can be disappointing at times. Everyone has to remember that when they drafted Slafkovsky first overall, the Canadiens said this is a long-term project, right? They knew that. So it doesn't really jive when you think about it that he's been put in the NHL as a teenager while they also think he's a long-term project. But because they said that, it's very intentional what they're doing. So whether or not it's the best choice, I guess we'll find out in the long run. But they clearly have a focus on Slafkovsky and what they want to accomplish that maybe isn't as satisfying to like the fan base as, sticking him in junior and watching him score 2 points a game.
And I mean, look, he got his first goal, great. Is that going to make the difference? That's going to all of a sudden change his overall play? I don't think so. I think he's still learning and trying to figure out exactly how he has to play in his overall game in the NHL, from getting involved, battles, shooting, just all the details of the game. aside from just goal scoring, he has to improve on, and consistency, and making sure that he's doing something every time he's got on the ice. So a young kid, again, we keep saying that he's trying to find his way. He's given the opportunity. Yes, great. He scored a goal, a nice goal at that. Now he's got to continue to find a way to improve in all areas, and keep the ball rolling to allow him to be effective each and every night.
Yeah, I wrote in my Stu Slapshot notebook Saturday, Slafkovsky doesn't look NHL ready. And then, of course, Saturday night he gets his first goal of the season. And I had people saying, now he's ready. Well, you know what? That's one goal in his last 32 games going back to last season. And I still don't think he looks NHL ready. I think the game's moving too quick for him to process it. The goalie did score. It was sort of a flutter. He made sort of a nice move, and then the puck sort of fluttered. I think the goalie was expecting a harder shot, and it went in. Having said that, the Canadiens are keeping him with the Canadiens. They think the best way for him to develop is with Marty St. Louis and playing with the Canadiens. And when Kent Hughes, before the draft, he told his scouts he didn't want the player who was the best player now. He wanted the best player down the road. We watched the game against Anaheim, and Logan Cooley looked NHL ready. I mean, the winning goal, blazing down the wing, making a nice pass. He's got almost a point a game average. For Slafkovsky, it's a big adjustment for him, coming from a new country, the smaller rink, everything else, the pressure of being a number one pick in Montreal, not like being the number one pick in Arizona or somewhere. But to me, he doesn't look like he's ready to play in the NHL. I think a stint in Laval would do him well. The Canadiens don't think that, or at least at this point, they don't think that. They think they're better off. I'm happy to see them move him up to the number one line, though, because at least if you're going to give him the chance to every opportunity to show you that he isn't ready, or he is ready. And if he doesn't look ready playing with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, then he's really not ready. And I think at that point, it's time to send him to Laval and let him play a bunch of minutes and gain some more confidence and maybe score some more goals. But the Canadiens aren't in a rush with him. As I said, Kent Hughes wanted the player that would be the best player down the road, not the best player right now. And they still think, obviously, that Slafkovsky is that guy.
And, as you just mentioned, that Martin St. Louis made the move to put him on the line with Suzuki and Caulfield. Do you think now was the right time to make that move? Should he have done it earlier in the season?
Well, I mean, he's faced quite a bit of criticism. I think everybody's kind of said, send him to Laval. Don't use him here. The kid has been dealing with a lot of controversy, and it's not easy, and he feels it. And he wants to change that. And, I think they're smart in allowing him to play with the top line, to give him every opportunity to improve on his skills and improve on his overall game. And if you can't, like Stu had mentioned, you can't do it with those guys, then you're not going to do it. So giving him a chance, they're really, on his side for his development to be in the NHL right now. And, he's going to have to figure it out sooner than later that he's got to continue to make strides in a positive way to be an effective player at the NHL level. And if not, then they're going to have to address that and maybe send him down to Laval.
Yeah, when Marty said one of the reasons he didn't put him on the line earlier is because he didn't really trust him defensively. And he said, Slafkovsky's improved his defensive play away from the puck. That's one of the reasons he put him with him. Another reason, I think, though, as I mentioned, if the game's moving too quick for him, putting him on that number one line where they're playing quick and they're playing against better guys than the other team, to me, doesn't help. I think the best way to help Slafkovsky would be play him with Monahan, who has that ability to slow down the game, or he controls the pace of the game when he's on the ice. But to do that, then you break up the line with Gallagher and with Pearson, which has been their best line this year. So it's a sort of tough situation. Do you take Monahan away from there? But I think at some point this season, I think the best fit for Slafkovsky would be to play with Monahan, the veteran. They get along really well together. Monahan told me this week he talks with Slafkovsky every day. Monahan can relate to what he's going through. He's a 6th overall draft pick, played as a 19-year-old in the NHL in Calgary with a lot of spotlight, a lot of focus on him. And Monahan is just one of those rare players. He has that ability to speed up or slow down the game as needed, and he could slow it down a little bit for Slafkovsky, and I think that would help him.
Yeah, I like the move to put him on the top line. It's a challenge for the young kid. It clearly wasn't working on the line that he was on. It kind of gives him the excuse as well to say, like, it's not just him, it was the line that was non-functional, which I think is frankly true. It wasn't just Slafkovsky who was struggling. I mean, we've watched Newhook at center was completely overwhelmed, and Josh Anderson has really struggled. So it wasn't just on Slafkovsky. So I love the idea of Marty St. Louis saying, I trust you enough defensively to play on this line, and giving him that challenge. And it was also a convenient spot, right? Because Harvey Pinard gets injured. They're asking what to do with Slafkovsky. Well, let's just put him here. It solves two birds with one stone, right? So it makes sense, but I also would like to see him with Monahan. I'd like to see him specifically with Monahan and Gallagher, because you look at Slafkovsky's goal, and the guy who actually made that goal happen was Brendan Gallagher. Not to take anything away from Slafkovsky and Newhook, who had a great little play up to that. It was several successive great plays by those two players, but Gallagher recognized Slafkovsky had a lane, and he kind of masked moving out of the crease and interfering with the goalie with a pick play on the defender and pushed the defender back. It was an absolutely savvy veteran play, because nobody's going to call that interference, because Gallagher can just say, well, I have to get away from the goalie because I'm Brendan Gallagher, and you can call the goal back if I'm in the crease. So I've got to get back here. I've got to get some space. And he kind of fell backwards and gave Slaf the open route. I loved Gallagher's play in that goal. And I think Gallagher is the kind of guy who can bring the best out of a player like Slafkovsky, who needs more space because of those little veteran moves. And Monahan's the same thing. So you put those two together with a young guy like Slafkovsky, I think there's a lot to do there. And Pearson, I think, is a bit of a Swiss Army knife. He'll kind of do what he does on every line.
Well, I like that, Andrew. I really like your idea there, because that frees up Pearson to put him with Suzuki and Caulfield. I think he would be a good fit on that line right now. A veteran guy who does all the little things right. He's like another Sean Monahan, but playing on the wing. Does everything right, and he's got a wicked shot. Suzuki's a playmaker, so if he can find Pearson in scoring high danger areas, he can score. So I really like that for two reasons. One, I think that line would work with Monahan and Gallagher, and two, I think Pearson would be a good guy to put on that number one line right now with Suzuki and Caulfield. And Caulfield's gone 5 games now without a goal. The longest stretch he went last season without a goal was 4. So he's maybe starting to squeeze the stick a little bit tight right now too.
And Pearson will get to the net on that line, and maybe create a little more space for those other guys to do their finesse stuff. So we'll have to wait and see. It's not a bad idea in my books either.
Now Pearson's impressive. He's a really good hockey player. I mean, after his career almost ended because of that hand injury last season, you figure he might have problems shooting the puck. He has no problem shooting the puck. He can fire it. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it there for this week, and we'll see what kind of line combinations are made between now and next episode. Thank you so much for joining us today on Hockey Inside Out. And if you have an idea of who you'd like to see Slafkovsky play with, leave that in the comments section below. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. Just go to the MontrealGazette.com/newsletters. And of course, you could visit the MontrealGazette.com for daily Habs news. And you can also check out some bonus episodes we have on our YouTube channel as well. Once again, I'm Jessica Rusnak, your host, and we'll talk to you next week.